Hello, I'm Tim Robinson, Editor-in-Chief of Aerospace, and with me today is Deputy Editor Steve Bridgewater.
Hi, guys.
And Features Editor Bella Richards.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome to Aerospace NOTAM, another edition of our podcast looking at global aviation, aerospace and space news, and what we have in the latest issue of Aerospace, December 2025, and also what's been going on. In the magazine, we cover everything from GA to spaceflight, from airliners to airports, from air law to eVTOLs. So let's get into it. But first, a message from our sponsors. This episode of the Royal Aeronautical Society podcast is proudly supported by Xometry, the AI-driven global manufacturing marketplace. From CNC machining and 3D printing to sheet metal and injection molding, Xometry helps aerospace professionals like you turn designs into precision parts quickly and at scale. To learn more and get an instant quote, visit www.xometry.uk. So, it's been a busy month, hasn't it? For some of us. Where have we been? What have we been doing? Who wants to start off? Shall I kick off?
Yeah, well, we did Dubai, didn't we?
We did the Dubai Air Show, so we've just about recovered from that. What an epic week out there in the desert. Lots of news, lots of things to see. eVTOL in the flying display, Russian stealth aircraft, the entire United Arab Emirates Air Force out on display. Emirates 40th anniversary. Lots to see and do, wasn't there, Steve?
There was. It was great. It was my first Dubai air show. I've been to Dubai before, but not for the air show. It was that's the all four done for me now. So I've done Farnborough, Paris, did Singapore, and now Dubai, and I really enjoyed Dubai. It's something very different about it. Very different atmosphere to it. And yeah, some really interesting and fun aeroplanes to look at.
What would you say makes it different?
It just has a different vibe to it, I think. I don't want to say relaxed because we didn't relax, but it's not as frenetic as some of the bigger shows, which means you get to spend more time talking to people. So normally we crash from press conference to press conference and it's all a bit running around. Whereas at Dubai, I found we have more time to actually sit and talk to people in depth and actually find out the stories, walk around the stands and talk to people who've got, we've got our standalone podcast on Dubai, which I'm sure you may have listened to by now, but there was a guy that got a blended wing body business jet proposal. And yeah, to get time to sit and talk to him and do a video with him is something we wouldn't perhaps have had time to do at Paris or Farnborough, where we're a bit busier.
Yeah, I've only been to two. I've been to Farnborough twice and Dubai once. And I agree. I think Dubai, there's a little more breathing room. Even though there's like almost just as much news, I think I completely agree. I found that like I had more time to speak to different, like I remember just going around this, like when I had a spare hour between press conferences, just going around the halls and being like, okay, who can I speak to next? And it was great.
Well, I think also, there's the international, international participation from all around the world, but also the access you get in terms of going on the static line and nothing is sort of fenced off. You can go out there and wander and you can get right up close to where the aircraft's sort of taking off as well. Clear skies, lovely weather. It's brilliant for photography, isn't it?
I had a field day, yeah. So, but yeah, we've got a standalone podcast on Dubai. So, and we've got the news in the magazine as well. So, yeah, we managed to fill 5 pages, and probably could have filled another 15, I think, with the news that came out of it. Having said that, it was a little bit slower than some of the bigger shows.
So check out all our digital and video content from the show if you haven't. There's been a lot going out there on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, so do have a look at that and just if you're interested in what's going on in the show. What else has been happening? Was it the medals and awards last week? Yes, medals. So we had the prestigious RAeS medals and awards, which I think in a first for the Royal Aeronautical Society saw a popular pop band get an award. So that was Public Service Broadcasting. Regular listeners might know that me and Steve are huge fans. And they got an award from our Young Persons Committee for, kind of basically promoting aviation, space through music. Great to see them there. Other people being honoured. Jeremy Graham got the Hardingham Sword, the Presidential Hardingham Sword. We had Mike Price and Richard Brown get a silver medal for their work on downwash, eVTOL's downwash. That was in the magazine earlier this year. Operation Spitfire, the Excalibur flight test team from 2XL. These are just some of the names I'm just pulling out here. And also the AeroTube winners. We have a competition here for young people to do a little video to put on YouTube, and they were also getting a mention as well. So great to see all those winners there, and sort of see the kind of, I suppose, the Oscars of the aeronautical community.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I unfortunately missed that. I managed to pick up a bug in Dubai, whether it was flu or COVID, I'm not sure. So unfortunately missed my favourite band being at HQ, which was a bit of a shame. But before we went to Dubai, I went to Telford for the International Plastic Modelers Society PMS Scale World Show. So I'm not a modeler, I have to say. I don't do airfix or any of the plastic models. I don't have the skill set for that, but I have a huge admiration for those that do, and it's a great event. I actually go for the books. There's a lot of aviation book launches take place at Telford. So went there with my mate Andy, and a real highlight of the year. I mean, so many models that you could discuss, but the one that really caught my eye was actually a Hawker Typhoon that had been wrapped in Tunnocks tea cake wrappers, which was done from one of the Scottish
No way.
Yeah. So,
how many would you have to eat?
Well, there was scattered around the stand. There were a number of tea cakes. So yeah, there was.
They're the best.
It was brilliant. So that was the other event I've been to. And we're kind of on the run up to Christmas now, aren't we? So that's probably one of the last things for the year for me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, I mean, if you think about it, I mean, think about some of the old modelling magazines. There was that sort of like metallic, not film, but you could get a kind of metallic stuff for the when you were doing kind of aluminium finishes and things like Mustangs. So maybe that's a sort of like a cheaper way of doing that, is use the Tunnocks wrappers. So it's been a busy month for news as well. There is news breaking. There's news breaking all the time at the moment. Just trying to keep up. What are the highlights that people found have spotted? Well, shall I lead off on that?
Yeah, editor-in-chief's privilege.
Go on, why not? So one of the things that came out while we were in Dubai, it wasn't Dubai news, but it is that BAE Systems, Boeing and Saab announced they're collaborating to pitch the T7 Red Hawk advanced trainer to the RAF to replace the Hawk. So that's a letter of intent. Develop the system, integrate live and synthetic training, and pitch this advanced trainer to replace the Hawk, and Hawk for potentially both Red Arrows and the T2 as used by the RAF. And the proposal, interestingly, includes final assembly in the UK. So that's the first sort of kind of manufacturer that's sort of publicly gone out and kind of confirmed it. We've got other manufacturers, OEMs there that are obviously waiting to see. And I think we're as we record this, there's going to be a competition announced pretty shortly. At least that's what we're hearing from sort of senior sources around the bazaars. Who's next?
Rapid fire. Okay, I can go next.
You go next.
This one was very interesting to me. Europe is developing its very own space suit, or I guess flight suits, designed by French sportswear company Decathlon. ESA astronaut Sophie Adino, hopefully I'm saying that right, will be testing this spacesuit during her 2026 trip to the ISS. So this is an IVA, so an intravehicular activity spacesuit. So it won't be used like
it's not for spacewalks. No, it's actually inside the vehicle.
So it would be used inside the vehicle. And so they've developed a prototype. It's called Eurosuit, and it was developed in collaboration with CNES, Spartan Space, and Medes. I think that is what it's called. And interestingly, it says that there's a lot of advancements in it, but particularly it can be put on and removed in under 2 minutes. And it says completely autonomously. The details are really slim, but I don't really know what that means. Like, do you step in it and it like a futuristic, like a
I think probably you don't need somebody to do the zip up on the back of your dress.
I picture like you step in it and it just gets on. Obviously, I'm sure there's more to that.
You should get on Dragon's Den with that idea. I think that would go really well.
Well, I've been getting in and out of it in 2 minutes. I mean, something that struck me watching a documentary, Once Upon a Time in Space, BBC documentary, and looking at the incidents on the Mir space station where they had a fire, and then they had was it a collision with the spacecraft that was docking with it, and how fast you have to react there and get some kind of respirator on. There was one astronaut there saying that I think that Mir had filled with smoke within 30 seconds.
Wow.
So
so you'd want a quick
time is off. If you've got an emergency spacesuit out, you need to get into it quicker. The quicker the better. Steve, what have you got?
Well, as is always the way, we went to print, I think less than, it was 4 days ago, wasn't it? And the news has changed since we hit print on the magazine. So over the weekend, the news broke that there was a problem with the Airbus A320 family. So there's been a software update on a number of that. I think it affected about 6,000 aircraft. So solar radiation affecting navigation systems and flight control systems. I think the really interesting thing with this story is not the fact that it was a problem, it's the fact that it's actually being resolved really, really quickly. So I think kudos to not just Airbus, but all the airlines that were involved. And I know a lot of the engineers worked through the night, I think over Saturday night into Sunday, to get this fleet back online. So yes, it was a software issue, which is hopefully a relatively quick thing to fix. But to get 6,000 aeroplanes back online, in next to no time, I think there needs to be an element of recognition there as to the hard work that's gone in.
And it was actually caused by, the issue was actually caused by space weather, wasn't it? It was solar radiation.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. So
Yep,
Tim.
Well, we've had a first flight. We've had NASA X-59 Quest has taken to the skies. So that's been something we were waiting for quite some time. 28th of October, Lockheed Martin X-59 low boom test bed, and it's looking to be exploring low boom or no boom supersonic.
They're after the sonic thud or thump rather than the sonic boom, aren't they?
Yeah. So it's taken a while. Also, it was the first flight also managed to coincide, or at least with the kind of federal government shutdown. So in the US, obviously everything kind of ground to a halt. We even had sort of like air traffic control being reduced in some airports by 10%. Obviously, NASA's a government agency, so they were affected as well. But good to see it in the air, and that's another supersonic demonstrator after Boom's XB1, isn't it?
Yep. Me next?
You next.
Wow, we're going quickly, people. Oh, yes, this was a very interesting one. So 3 Chinese taikonauts were, I'll say it now, stranded on the Tiangong space station since 14th of November, but they now have their return vehicle docked on the station. So basically, what happened was the taikonauts serving the Shenzhou 21 mission. They arrived at the station on the 31st of October, but the spacecraft that delivered them ended up taking home the previous mission because their own vehicle was deemed unsafe due to a piece of space debris, causing a crack in the window. So now finally, Shenzhou 2 spacecraft, oh my gosh, I can't say spacecraft, has docked with the space station. So now they're not stranded anymore. But this was actually the first delay of a mission and any kind of rescue thing having to take place for the Chinese, space flight program. Nothing has ever kind of happened since the space station was launched a few years ago. And actually, as of today, they've announced, the Chinese space program has announced that the damaged spacecraft is going to be returning to Earth. They're going to be doing a lot of tests on it. They believe that their preliminary judgment, they believe that the space debris was smaller than 1 millimeter. But that just goes to show that the smallest amount of space debris can make, a huge impact on a very, big space program. So it'll be interesting to see what they find from it. I'm curious if we'll even find out what the space debris was from. I doubt it. I mean, it's so tiny. But yeah, sorry.
They had a replacement spacecraft, kind of on standby, didn't they, to go up? I mean, they kind of
well, it's
sorted
just
out.
the next one that was going to
Yeah,
go up anyway.
yeah.
So it shows that even though they were stranded for a little bit, it shows that they have a program that's working, and they were only, I say stranded with quotation marks. They were only stranded for a little bit, and
But they got the launch cadence, haven't they, for getting
exactly,
getting
which
quickly.
Something to learn from, I guess. All right, next, Steve.
Me, I've got a general aviation story. Sorry.
Yep.
It's a sad story, I'm afraid. It's the end of the line for two very, very famous aeroplanes. The Beechcraft Bonanza and the Baron are coming to an end. So the Beechcraft line, now owned by Textron. Textron has announced that as of the end of 2025, they will be stopping production.
Wow.
I mean, these are old aeroplanes.
How old?
Bonanza first flew in 1947.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
So, the original, what was called the V-tail dentist killer, it was unfairly nicknamed, I think. So, they originally had the V-tail on the back, was modified into the single tail as well.
Right.
I mean, they've built 26,500 Bonanzas since 1947, and they've built 7,000 Barons since 1961. And there's around 13,000 still flying, but they're just not selling now. I think the General Aviation Manufacturing Association said that just 5 Bonanzas and 2 Barons were sold in 2024.
Wow.
So,
Okay.
so it's really fallen off.
Very much reduced.
But the good news is that Textron have pledged they're going to continue supporting current owners with spares and things like that. But end of an era, really.
Yeah.
Two very, very famous aeroplanes.
Yeah.
So Steve, here's a question: is the dentist killer? Was that epitaph? Was it justified?
No, I don't think so. It was a complex aeroplane for its era. The reason that you've got doctors and dentists flying them, and so they've got the disposable income to fly these aeroplanes. It's something we've seen in recent years with the Cirrus. It's very different to the technology that went before it, and you've got high net worth individuals are the first that can afford to buy these things, so you have a higher accident rate. And it's not the aeroplane's fault per se. It's really there was nothing exactly wrong with the Bonanza, particularly the V-tail ones. It's just the fact that you'd got people coming in with relatively low hours to fly the aeroplane. And it's a great shame because it did tarnish the reputation of particularly the Bonanza in the early days. I've flown both the V-tail and the straight tail, and they're both beautiful aeroplanes, really nice to fly. It's certainly one that's in my fantasy hangar.
Yeah.
Cool.
Fantasy hangar.
So over to me again, and we've had a bit more military news. We've had the VTOL X-BAT from Shield AI. So this is a VTOL UCAV. It's jet powered. It's an armed UCAV. It was unveiled in a glittering ceremony in Washington. Somebody who was there described it to me as something along the lines of an Iron Man or a Marvel production. But this is trailer launched, and it's got the idea is that you can disperse these things out, you can spread them out, you can fit 60 of them on the HMS Queen Elizabeth class carrier. They're all vertically launched. They come in, they land vertically as well, and they present a huge, a huge challenge to anyone trying to target them because they're runway independent. So think of something like a Harrier, or of that sort of concept of operations, and now kind of scale it up with this sort of idea of distributed mass, turning every ship or like a transporter to go off air bases and stuff, and really have that sort of deterrent effect of this distributed mass, like a networked UAVs, AI that can be armed with air-to-air missiles or air-to-surface weapons, or even EW packages. So there's some people there who are very, very excited by it, shall we say. Interesting. It also revisits something that British Aerospace came up with I think it was in the 1980s, actually, and that was to be armed with two, I think it was sky flashes, and it was a tail-sitting, jet-propelled stealth UCAV.
Yeah.
Bella, what have you got to finish us
One more
off?
for you.
Yeah, one more for me. This one was just a more personal interest for me. So ahead of the ISS's 25th anniversary in November, NASA historian and engineer Ben Feist, I'm not sure how to say his last name, and a NASA contractor, David Charney, built a new website called ISS in Real Time, basically allowing users to watch multimedia from any day, any time, selected over the past 2.5 decades on the station. Guys, this website, it's awesome. You have to go look. In fact, it has so much data. I think what it said, containing 9,127 days of mission data, full space-to-ground communications coverage, over 7 million photos from days in space. Obviously, lots of videos. You can literally click what happened exactly at this time 1 year ago today, 20 years ago today, and it'll show you just the live stream.
Wow.
This website, I can't even imagine how much time it would have taken to build it. In fact, actually, Ben wrote a whole article detailing about how they created the website. It's really, really interesting. But honestly, this is such a piece, a capsule, time capsule of history. And I think it deserves more coverage, honestly. It's just such a phenomenal.
Well, we've got it on here in the office, haven't we? We've been tuning in, looking over each other's shoulders.
Literally have it on my screen right now. It's really cool, so definitely check it out. See?
It's also, I mean, the people growing up now of that age, they can't imagine a time when we didn't have.
Exactly.
Well, at least one space station in orbit, and now two, possibly more in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah. Steve, what have you got to finish us off then?
I've got having had a sad GA story, I've got a good news GA story. The UK is going to make an attempt on the piston-powered seaplane speed record. Of course, something that the UK famously held the record in the early 1930s. Schneider Trophy, Supermarine S6B, that pushed the speed limit up to 407 miles an hour. 1934, it was stolen back by the Italians, and they've held it ever since. But Professor Andrew Ray, a fellow of the Society, he's at University of Highlands and Islands, and a team have put together a proposal to build an aircraft called Seablade to...
It's a good name.
Yeah, it's a great name, to regain this record. So this is a composite seaplane powered by, and you'll love this, Tim, it's a Rolls-Royce Griffon engine with contra-rotating propellers. So it's a Griffon 87, which is off one of the late Mark Spitfires. They reckon they'll be able to push the speed record beyond 500 miles an hour.
Wow.
So, a stellar team involved in this. And, we talk often, Tim, you and I, about inspiring the next generation. This is the sort of thing that we're using new technology combined with old technology. So you've got an all-composite aeroplane with a World War II era Griffon engine breaking a speed record. How cool can you get?
Yeah.
That's gonna be one hot
cool.
ship, I think. Right. So as we that's our news roundup, and now we're going over to our regular segment of podcast, Specialist Group Insight. Back after the break.
Hello, and welcome back to another Specialist Group Insight segment of the podcast. I'm Seth Moffat, chair of the Flight Operations Specialist Group, and today we're going to be discussing a recent article from the Society's AEROSPACE publication. In the November 2025 edition, the Society marked the 40th anniversary of Emirates by drawing on the newly donated papers of Sir Maurice Flanagan. The papers were donated to the National Aerospace Library, and the article illustrates how the airline was created under significant constraints and guided through disciplined leadership into one of the most influential long-haul carriers of the modern era. It offers a valuable perspective on how foundational leadership decisions shape the long-term development of an airline. My guest today has been closely involved in the broader story of Emirates Airlines. Captain Alan Stealey, who's a fellow of the Society and former branch chairman of the Heathrow and UAE branches, began his career with British Airways, where he served in senior flight operations management, including 4 years as general manager long haul and general manager of the 747 and 777 fleets. He later joined Emirates, spending more than a decade as Divisional Senior Vice President Flight Operations, leading one of the world's most complex long-haul operations during a sustained period of rapid growth. He subsequently became principal of the Emirates Flight Training Academy and later acted as a consultant to Fly Dubai before eventually retiring. Alan's experience offers a rare insight into leadership at large scale, as well as the development of flight operations in high-growth environments and the evolution of airline training and safety oversight. Alan, it's a privilege to welcome you to the segment today. Thank you very much for taking the time to join me all the way from Dubai.
Well, thanks very much for inviting me. I'm really interested to hear your questions. I'll do my best to answer them. And the Emirates is a magnificent story, and I'll be delighted to give you some insights.
Well, let's start with Emirates then. The Aerospace magazine feature on Emirates Airlines describes the airline's creation under pretty significant constraints. In fact, I think the quote was, the airline held no aircraft of its own, needed to be launched in 5 months, and had a limited budget of $10 million. When you joined, did you still see or sense any of that early mindset in the organization? Was it still in that sort of startup and growth phase?
It was. Having said that, it was quite a large airline when I joined it. There were in my area there were about 500 pilots. Yes, it was. It did start off quite with difficulties, and I think His Highness Sheikh Mohammed, the ruler of Dubai, set aside $10 million to start the airline, and he gave it to Sir Maurice and to His Highness Sheikh Ahmed, and told them to get on with it and don't come back for any more money. And as you say, they had no aircraft, no routes, nothing. So they started it from scratch. And there was a discipline there, I think. There had to be a discipline there in terms of how the airline was run, how the operation was completed. And you all know the story that the original aircraft was 727 from Pakistan Airlines with Pakistan Airline crew. And Pakistan, Karachi, I think, was the first operational route that Emirates took on, and expanded from there. The background to the airline is the fact that there was a bit of discussion around the carriers in the Gulf, and Dubai thought it wasn't getting its fair share of transport when you looked at big airlines like Gulf Air in those days, where Bahrain was very much the centre of the Gulf. But the Dubai government had high hopes for Dubai and worked really hard on it. Yes, it was a tough start, but they did remarkably well.
Well, you know, the airline grew at a pace that I think, to my knowledge, few airlines have matched. From your perspective and your position as senior management, what would you say were the most significant operational pressures that came along with that kind of scale of expansion?
Well, the scale of expansion, yes, there were some operational issues in terms of getting routes set up with all the operational data for flying those routes. But probably the biggest challenge was the introduction of the aircraft like the A380. And that was just a step change. And we had a step change in terms of what the aircraft could do, where we were flying to. We started up the ultra-long range operation shortly after before the A380 joined us. We used to run the ultra-long range operations on the A3 4500. But that was a slightly... Well, it's a fleet they got from Singapore Airlines, and that wasn't their perhaps first choice, but it was a good stepping stone into the ultra long range operation, and that was really a start, the more the complex side of it. And from joining in myself in 2004 with 500 pilots, when I left there were 4,500 pilots, and that's a ninefold increase in the number of pilots. So that in itself brought some challenges, but not as big a challenge as I thought there might be. When I first joined Emirates, knowing that there was a lot of plans for expansion, it did cross my mind that we would probably have challenges in that time, and yes, we did, but the challenges were not what we expected. The challenges were not around nationality. We had something like 90 different nationalities on the flight deck.
Yeah.
And I thought that was going to be a big issue. I thought that was going to be a really tough nut to crack, but it wasn't. Everybody on the flight deck was very much wanting to be in Emirates. Most of them are the expats at those days. Now we've got a load more Emiratis in the company who live in the country, obviously.
Yeah.
But before that, it was mainly expats. But they tend to be more extrovert than sort of most people, the average person. They have to be extrovert to up sticks from where they're living and move to Dubai and settle down there.
For you, having come from a legacy carrier like British Airways and moved into a sort of, at the time, a relatively new carrier that was in this mode of expansion, is there something that stands out clearly to you when comparing the differences between the sort of legacy airline culture and the sort of startup rapid growth airline culture?
Well, one of the things that does stand out and always stood out and it continues to stand out is that Emirates has a very much a can-do attitude.
Yeah.
If it's decided at a high level and the airline is controlled quite centrally by all the senior executives, and when a decision is made that this is what we're going to do, the answer is, no, I'm sorry, we can't do that. The answer is, yeah, how are we going to do that and how quickly can we do it? So there were some challenges in terms of the A380 operation, for example. We were told the aircraft was going to go to the west coast of the States and the east coast of the States. And it was the ultra-range operation on the A380. And we had to send teams of people across the world looking at the airfields we were going to fly into. Our specialist operations engineers went out as teams. They did a cracking job in terms of determining where the A380 could go to, getting approval from the airlines. Some of the airports, I beg your pardon, getting approval from the airports. Some of the airports are very quick to step up and say, whatever you want us to do, we'll do it to get the A380 operation here. Other airports were not so quick to pick up the gauntlet and run with it. But in general, it worked very well. But I mean, we had people going around the world. We had people going to Norway, northern Norway, in the Arctic Circle, to look at Burda and airfields up there to see if there was a medical emergency on an airplane going across that area, where the A380 from Dubai to the west coast of the States certainly goes up over that area, very far north. So we're actually sending teams out to these airfields, which are small airfields, but actually most of them wanted to help us. And so a lot of work was done. So that was not only we have to look at the airfields we were operating into, and airports like Heathrow were a challenge in terms of where the aircraft could taxi around with all the required separation in taxiing aircrafts. And then we looked at the alternates, and then we looked at the en route alternates under ETOPS, and then we looked at, well, what if situation, where if we had a passenger sick on board and we needed to get the aircraft on the ground, where would we go? So we spent a huge amount of work doing that.
I can just imagine, particularly with a route network like Emirates, you would have to go all over the globe, really. There would be nowhere you wouldn't be potentially able to reach.
Yeah.
And thinking about Dubai itself with an aircraft the size of the 380, thinking in terms of things like the temperature and so on in Dubai, how did you find that? Dubai itself is well situated geographically for reaching a lot of major cities, but the Middle East itself obviously is a very hot environment. How did the aircraft handle that, and how was that from flight ops?
Well, we recognise that we're fortunate here in Dubai that we are, for a spoken hub operation, it's absolutely ideal. We can get to the Far East, to Africa, and to the USA, and of course Russia and China now. So yes, we're geographically situated, but the temperature does bring some real issues. And especially in summer here, the temperature in the mornings can be up in the 40s already. We actually had to rearrange some of the schedules so that the aircraft that we had to get off and get a long way to the west coast of the States, Los Angeles, San Francisco, left in the morning before the temperature rose.
Yeah.
And we used to have to watch the temperature rise. And if the aircraft was held up for any reason, for passenger management or for operational ATC management, we used to need to watch the temperatures very carefully, because we'd soon reach a situation where we wouldn't be able to lift the load that we'd put on the aircraft if the temperature rose too high. It was a challenge. It seems to have settled down now. I think we've all got used to the idea that this is a constraint which needs to be managed properly. And this is a constraint that we've got to get right, because the aircraft only makes money if every seat on the aircraft is full. And if you're leaving seats empty just because we need to get the aircraft off the runway because of the temperature, then, it's not a successful operation as it could be. And of course, under commercial pressure, not safety pressures, but commercial pressures to get this working. And that came down from the top, from the president. He needed to get as many seats airborne as he possibly could. So we just said, let's see how do we do that, and it worked well. But it was a bit of a challenge at times.
I can just imagine, yeah. And then of course, with that sort of route network, some of the places you would fly, like Canada in the winter, in Scandinavia, and so on, you would have the opposite problem. You would have the cold temperatures and the snow and ice to deal with.
Yes, and certainly we've had our fair share of that. But I can remember talking to an Australian pilot, one of our A380 crew members, captain, he went to Toronto, I think it was, and he said to me that he had never ever de-iced before, because of course, coming from Australia, operating into the Middle East, doesn't happen that often.
No.
So he said it was completely new. He was prepared as we could carry out all the training and everything, but it was something that he'd never come across before. And of course, myself coming from Europe, every winter was challenge at times, depending on the weather, but the European weather could be pretty awful to operate in.
Yes, it can. That's right.
This guy in the whole of his career had never had to de-ice.
Excellent. Coming back to the sort of growth, going from 500 pilots to 4,000, in a position like yours, a senior flight ops management position, how were you able to ensure safety and training standards remain consistent? I mean, that's a lot of new instructors, a lot of new aircraft, as you mentioned. From your perch up as a senior VP, how would you maintain that sort of level of consistency?
Well, this is one of these questions which we just went with it and knew what we had to do, and we just did it. I think it starts off by selection. We had to make sure that we selected the right pilots, and the selection process was and still is very strict for Emirates. A very high standard of pilot that we take on. Having done that, we then, if somebody had been on an Airbus, we put them on the A380. If somebody had been on a Boeing, before they joined us, we put them on Boeing. There's no kind of trying to switch people and putting them where they wanted to go necessarily, but where we thought operationally it makes good sense from a safety point of view. So that was the first thing. The training in Emirates is first class. We've got absolutely first class facilities here. And we've got a really good training team under Martin Marnie, he's just retired now. But the training standards were exceptionally high. We introduced a new training standards department, and we took our senior training captains and made them standardization captains. And every instructor goes through standardization training and checking, as well as doing his own instructing, as well as flying the line. So these standardization guys were really experienced individuals. And what was encouraging is from the top of the company, it was understood. We weren't going to cut corners. We were going to do the best for the company. We were going to get the best result and for a safe operation. So we felt that we had all the senior team in Emirates behind us, willing us along to get a good job done. And we did, and it worked out really well.
Sort of a hypothetical question here, but if you were to design a modern pilot training framework today from first principles based on your experience from BA and Emirates and so on, what sort of elements would you prioritize? What if I were to start an airline tomorrow, what would be my top priority in training?
Well, I think that, to be honest, you don't do big step changes. It's tiny steps we take as we make improvements through the process. And we're still making improvements. In my time, evidence-based training was brought into our training, and that was quite revolutionary. Not evolutionary. It's quite revolutionary as to how we did it, and we had to take our regulator along with it. But luckily, he was very much on side, and the company was very much on side. So the Emirates has got one of the first training setups with the evidence-based training. And the other thing that we did was very soon after the jet upsets that we saw, the jet upset training, the UPRT, we introduced that very quickly as well. And again, we got superb support from the senior management team to say, yes, we've got to do this. And, we had to keep them informed as to what we were doing. So we've got first-class simulators. Incidentally, the UPRT training, the upset prevention and recovery training, it was a bit of a challenge because the simulator manufacturer said, well, we don't know what the aircraft does. As you move outside a normal operating envelope, we're not exactly sure. So there's a lot of work done on that to make sure that if we do get people to react to jet upsets, that the reaction is correct and the outcome is correct. And that was challenging as well. But we did it, and we're there, and we're still working on that one as well. I think that's a continuing evolution, to be honest.
It is, yes. In fact, actually, some of that was born through the society, if I'm not mistaken. I know Dr. Sanju Advani, who's been involved with the FOG from time to time, he was quite heavily involved in that. So UPRT has made its way around the world now. Yes,
it has. But Emirates was one of the first because we were given the okay to spend time and effort and money. And it does cost to get pilots off the line to go and do this training. And again, we got approval from the high level that this is what we needed to do. We pushed hard for it, and we got it. And I think the results speak for themselves. So yes, UPRT have gone round the world now, but Emirates, I think, was very much there. And I'm going back, 15 years, maybe longer. We started looking at this.
So obviously, as you say, small incremental changes and prioritizing modern changes in training technology or training techniques even as they come along. With the benefit of hindsight now from everything that you did during the span of your career and looking back on it now, is there an operational or leadership decision that you might approach differently today than how you did it at the time based on what you knew then?
Yes, I mean, that's an interesting question, and one I hope you weren't going to ask me, because I'm not, I'm not great at analysing that. I was described by a psychologist as being an unconscious capable guy. In other words, I was doing what I was doing, but I didn't really understand exactly what I was doing. It just came kind of naturally, and I guess it. Yeah. You then go into the area of are good leaders born or are good leaders developed? And I don't think we want to go into that one either. But it became obvious to me, and I think it's in my genes. My father was very much like that. He started off as an office boy and ended up as director of a FTSE company in London. And he couldn't explain how it happened, apart from the fact he took every chance that was available. Yeah. And he just made these common sense. But as one of the senior managers in Emirates said, well, of course, common sense these days is not very common. And I think that's probably it. So people who have got common sense really are on a winner, I think. But yes, I think that, there have been some things. I think if you're a manager or a leader, you're always going to make mistakes. But I think really, if you're going to make decisions, then you need to know what the risk is. I mean, it's like any pilot making a decision on a flight. If I do that, what's the risk and what's plan B if it goes wrong? And I don't think leadership management is any different from that, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a large part of flight operations management, really, isn't it? It's risk management. It's weighing probabilities and outcomes and making the best decision you can with the information you have available at the time.
Yeah, and then if you make a decision and the information changes and you can't change the decision, you have to live with it and try and make other amelioration for that.
It's an interesting topic because when you get into flight operations management at almost all levels, most of the people who end up there come through the sort of flying ranks, for obvious reasons. Sometimes they're required to. Sometimes the requirement of the job is that they have flying backgrounds, and other times it's just a natural progression. Yet, when we go through our licensing and flying experience, we don't really get a lot of sort of business management training or anything like that, and then all of a sudden we end up in these office jobs.
Very true. However, I was very fortunate in British Airways. I guess I was picked out early on, and I did some really good training with them at London Business School, and that really, I mean, I'm working with other companies, and watching how those other companies have developed, expanded, and also not done so well. And it was a very open and frank discussion behind closed doors. It went on for about 6 months, on and off. And it was interesting, though, that the other companies, they may be selling clothes, they may be a telecommunications company, they may be a bank. And there were 6 companies. But the challenges were pretty similar, and the management skills required were pretty similar. But you're right. You take a pilot who's naturally taught to be a team player, and you suddenly need someone who's pretty much a team player, but also got something a little bit extra, a little bit of more. He wants to move on a bit further and to make changes. The other problem with pilots is, and I can say this because I was one, is that it can be very black and white. It's either right or it's wrong. And in management, there's not too many black and whites, but there are loads of greys that you need to contend with and manage. So that's something. And some pilots don't think to be managers. Some pilots, perhaps those pilots, don't want to be managers. But there are others who I think have probably got a bit of a gift that needs helping, coaxing, mentoring, and they make good managers, as we've seen. They run airlines.
So, the majority of our listeners are society members, some of whom are still at the beginning of their careers and might aim to progress from the flight deck into these senior management roles in operations. Is there any advice that you could give to them? Anything that you would suggest that might prepare them for that path or help get into that stream?
Well, there's several things I think they could think about. First of all, when you're flying as a first officer or co-pilot, watch the captain in the left-hand seat, and I mean, general how he makes decisions, what he says, and also the planning. I mean, you can tell from somebody, a good captain always has a plan B for whatever's happening. And I flew as a co-pilot for far too long before I actually got my upgrade, but that's another story. I used to watch some captains and I used to think, I'm never going to do it like that when I get my command. Others, you think, yes, that is a neat way of doing that. Try to persuade the cabin crew that they need to extend their hours. There's a way of doing it, and there's a way of not doing it. And if you're good at it, you can almost certainly get them to turn around and say, yeah, okay, we'll do that. But it's not just cabin crew. That's just an example. Ground staff as well, dispatchers, load planners, flight planners. It's how you deal with people. And those, I think, who make good managers, good leaders, have that ability to get on with people. And you can see it as well. It's not only in work, it's outside as well. It's how a good people person makes a good leader. We had in British Airways, when I was there, we had Colin Marshall, later Sir Colin Marshall and then Lord Marshall, as our CEO. And he was a past master at being a people person, and he could actually get people to do things which they didn't want to do, and that's part of the job as well. But he was a past master, and he reminds me very much, because having left British Airways, I then went to Emirates and met Maurice Flanagan, later Sir Maurice Flanagan, and he was another one. He was a past master at being a good people person. And he'd get you to do things that you didn't want to do because he was so good at it. He didn't suffer fools gladly, and neither did Colin Marshall. And if he wanted you to do something, he'd tell you. And if you didn't get it right, he'd tell you. But you'd die in a ditch for this kind of guy, because you can see they are true leaders. And I always make that connection between Lord Marshall and Sir Maurice. Very, very similar individuals.
Someone to sort of model yourself against if you would like to end up in that stream.
Yes. Yeah.
Unfortunately, we're about to run out of time now, but before we go, on behalf of the Society and specifically the Flight Ops Group that I represent, I'd like to say thank you for your contribution to the industry. I think it's very safe to say that you left the industry in a better situation than you found it. So thank you.
Well, that's very kind of you to say so. And thank you for inviting me. That was an honour and a privilege, and I'll be listening to it and see whether it comes over in the same way that I had intended.
I'm sure it will. Thank you very much.
All right. Bye now.
Welcome back. Okay, so that was Specialist Group Insights there. Another excellent segment from the Flight Operations Group. We're going to look at now what have we got in the December 2025 issue. It's December. Can't believe it's come around already.
I know, it's scary. Isn't it?
But what an issue. We've got Raiders of the Lost Archives. I mean, so Mike Price there, aviation historian, has dug up basically Britain's answer to Firefox that was designed in the 1980s. It's like a scaled down Concorde with missiles. We've got another article. We've got an article there on the next industrial frontier. That's about exploiting the moon. Greener business aviation. Can it avoid the stigma of being unsustainable? We've got update on F-35 and what's happening with Block 4. We've got obviously all our Dubai Air Show news. Plus also the usual news, events, society updates, all packed into the issue. It's another bulging issue. If you have got branch news and reports, photos, etc., lecture reports, I do pass them on to Deputy Editor Steve Bridgewater at Stephen with a PH, .bridgewater@aerosociety.com. So that's the December one. That's the December issue summarised. And now we're going over to upcoming events and shout-outs. So we've got, as this has been recorded, later on this week, we've got the Wilbur Orville Wright Lecture. Really looking forward to that. We've got Dot Winters, who is the Chief Scientist RTX, 100 years of Pratt & Whitney. Going to be fascinating to hear what he has to say. 17th of December, we've got a webinar on joining the RAeS. So if you're not a member, why not? In the first place, but 17th of December, you can join in. You can have a free webinar. You can find out how to join. 18th of December, you can find out about gaining professional registration with the RAeS. So that's for the engineers among us. Again, it's free. We've got a GCAP lecture at the Munich branch on 18th of December as well. Herman Clausen from BAE Systems. If you're in Germany, Munich, that will be one to go to, definitely. And then moving on to 2026, we've got the Singapore Air Show. Myself and Steve will hopefully be at the show. 3rd to 6th of February, we'll be out there covering all the news from the show. And then we've got a whole load of RAeS events planned for 2026. RAeS Aerodynamics Conference, that's on 18th and 19th of February. We've got the Business Aviation Forum in 2nd of March. RAeS Commercial Aviation Summit, also in March, 3rd to 4th of March. RAeS Weapons Systems and Capability Conference, 11th of March. And then we've got RAeS Future Air and Space Summit, 20 to 21st of May. So that's the FCAS Summit that's been a huge success these past couple of years. It's back in May. So all these stuff are things to set your diaries for anyway. So we're coming there to sort of almost the final roundup, end of this podcast. What have we been watching, reading, playing? Who wants to start off?
Shall I go first, seeing as you've just rattled through all those dates? I'll give your voice a rest for a minute.
Go on.
Tim, you and I have been big fans for a while now of the We Have Ways podcast with Al Murray and James Holland. They've now moved on to YouTube with World War II Headquarters is their series. And,
have they opened a second front?
Yeah, absolutely. James is walking the ground. It's exactly what he's doing. The first episode I saw was actually they went flying in the two-seat Spitfire out of Sywell with the late, great and much missed Richard Grace. So good interview with Richard talking about the Merlin engine, why it was so good, how it came about, why the Spitfire is so famous. A brilliant episode, obviously tinged with sadness that it's now a year since we lost Richard, but put out obviously in tribute to him, and highly recommend. I'm looking forward to seeing how that series evolves actually on YouTube.
Excellent. What about you, Bella?
Yes. Well, I actually listened to a recommendation from you, Tim, and I sat down the other night with my husband and watched House of Dynamite. And I did allude to the fact that I didn't like the movie, but I thought it was interesting. It's like three perspectives, right? Of what even happened? I'm trying to even remember.
A missile strike, right, a potential missile strike on the US. Yeah.
But I thought I was excited. Well, this sounds terrible, but I was excited for the missile to actually crash land. But not crash land, but you know what I mean? But it didn't. And I was looking forward to, one of those post-apocalyptic movies. But I think I was a little disappointed. Tim, did you like the movie?
Yeah.
You did.
So you're basically saying there wasn't enough CGI
Yeah,
and destruction.
I needed destruction, but that's okay. But I am looking forward to a different movie, which also, Tim, you just reminded me of, Project Hail Mary, which has beloved Ryan Gosling in it. And well, from the trailer, it looks like it's about I think he's a scientist, but he's not an astronaut, and he wakes up in space, in a capsule in space, and he has no memory of why he's there, and then his memory starts coming back, and he communicates with the ground, and he finds out that I think he's there to save the world from something happening. I'm not too sure, I guess, but I'm really looking forward to that. And
the book is very good. Yeah.
Well, since you didn't get your nuclear apocalypse, I'm halfway through reading a book actually, which I'll recommend on that subject series, which is called 6 Minutes to Winter: Nuclear War and How to Avoid It, which is by Mark Linus.
Okay.
So I'll report back on that next month. But if you want your nuclear apocalypse that you didn't get in House of Dynamite,
please,
Bella, I'll
give it to me.
I'll refer you to that one.
Thank you.
So, talking of nuclear apocalypses, I've been trying to prevent them in a Steam game that popped up on popped up on Steam. It's called Air Defender. Popped up on Steam over the weekend. Steam is the online, digital games service, and it's basically air defence of Britain.
Mm-hmm.
So you end up sort of scrambling QRAs, intercepting rogue airliners, shadowing bears. It's set in 1998, so you have the full tools to identify suspect aircraft, find out what they're doing. You got Tornado F3s, you got AWACS, you got tanker tracks to try and it's one of the things. So if you've seen ATC games before, where you're trying to manage several things going on at once, and trying to sort of vector aircraft for landing and things like that. Yeah, it's kind of that, but it's on steroids, and there are missiles involved, and it just ramps up. It's very, very authentic. The person who's behind it, I think it's a one-person developer team. They seem to be sort of ex-RAF air defense specialist, and super authentic. Graphics are very, very minimal. It's not going to win any awards for graphics, but if you in terms of putting you in a control center and going, what's that aircraft? Why is there a something here that's squawking? Cessna 172. It's at 50,000 feet and it's doing Mach 2. That doesn't
something doesn't add up.
That doesn't, and it. It's coming from the high north, down from Norway to the Orkney Islands. So I think I better go and send some interceptors up to see it. Great idea, concept, and I think it's going to interesting to see where it goes.
Yeah.
So that is all for us nearly. So where can people look up to the RAeS and the mag? Well, I'm still there plugging away on X, RAeS Tim R. Steve, you're still around there?
I'm still on mostly LinkedIn and Facebook, as Stephen, as you said earlier, with a PH, Stephen Bridgewater. You'll find me mostly on LinkedIn and Facebook, and occasionally on X.
Mm-hmm.
And we would say where Bella would be, but it's a goodbye to features editor Bella, who is sadly leaving us again.
I know.
Bella.
Yes, I know. Only a few months after returning from maternity leave, my family and I are moving back to Australia. So it's a very sad goodbye, and I know it was a short time coming back, but I'm going to miss this team and, this place very much. But it's been fun doing this podcast. I hope having a female voice has been nice, actually.
I think it's been couple people. You've brought a dynamic to the team.
Glad.
So we're certainly going to... Yeah, I know. I'm sure I speak with Tim when I say we're both going to miss you.
Definitely,
And I'm just looking forward to coming and visiting Australia. So
you got to all come to Australia.
Yeah, so we'll organise the Avalon Air Show, and we'll be crashing in Bella's spare room.
I'll join. I'll come cover it.
So thanks for all your hard work, Bella, and we are gonna miss you, and hopefully you'll still be able to write for us, contribute for us somehow, and all the best there for the future.
Thank you.
So reminder: views, questions, feedback, do send them our way. Questions: do you like what's happening? Do you like our digital content from Dubai? And we've also like to thank our sponsors again. So we've got a little message here. Just to thank, again, our podcast sponsor for this episode, Xometry. Whether you're prototyping the next innovation in aerospace or scaling up production, Xometry connects you with trusted manufacturers worldwide, saving you time and resources. Discover how Xometry can accelerate your projects by visiting www.xometry.uk. With that, it's a goodbye from me.
It's a goodbye from me.
And a goodbye from me.
See you next time.
Cheers, guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye.